He's all, Neal, how do you want to be remembered? And then I stopped myself and I said, what can we control? And the thing that I know I can control is how I can compete, how I can perform, and how I react to this situation. So when I went on that floor, 3, 2, 1 goes, what I did instead of shutting down, I gritted it out and I made it.
Hi, I'm Jason Khalipa, and welcome to the AMRAP Mentality Podcast, a show where we interview interesting people about how they make the most out of every single minute. On today's episode, we have Neal Maddox. Neal's competed at the CrossFit Games as an individual 6 times. He's competed in the Masters division twice, and just recently won the championship, taking first in the 40 to 44-year-old bracket. Neal also owns a gym, just got married, and has been training for a long time. I talked to him today about how he got introduced to bodyweight training when he was 9 years old, how he started creating world records when he was 15 in different types of lift like the bench press, how he transitioned to football, and then finally found CrossFit and what he has going on today. I really enjoyed this episode, specifically of how he talks about how he writes down notes and how he's learned from his past to dictate what he could do in the future. I hope you guys enjoy this episode just as much as I did, and as always, have a great day. All right, guys. So I'm here with Neal, and we are going to chat. We're going to chat all things CrossFit Games related, recently some of the steroid use, but also something I really want to talk to Neal about, which I think is incredible, is that he's in his early 40s. He's been training at a high level for well over 20 years, from arena football to college football to the CrossFit Games. And what is your kind of like? We talk about this AMRAP mentality and this ability to be present and focused, but for you, it's like, how do you recover? How do you segment your day? And how have you done this? Which is what I want to dive into. Before we get there, I want to go to your past. So a long time ago, you had told me a story about how you were raised and kind of like, I think that plays into your work ethic. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, many years ago, I got to always look at my dad, and my dad was actually a big buff guy. So, I mean, when I mean big, he was big. He would flex and would hang and swing off his arms. And when you have 20 plus inch arms, you wonder. And so when you look at a figure like that, you're like, wow, And then I had an uncle who played for the Niners, who won Super Bowls with the Niners. And then you see these guys, these strong guys around you, you're like, man, I have to follow in some footsteps. And so many years ago, I started with body weight stuff. I literally push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups. I mean, literally, I'd get taken to the hills.
At what age?
At about 9 years old.
9 years old.
And so I would get taken to the hills, dropped off out the car, run after the car, the whole 9 yards, pushing cars. Wonder why I won that sled push, right? Started at 9 years old. But a lot of this stuff started at a young age and instilled in me that, hey, if you want to get somewhere, you got to put in the work. And so at the age of 15, I was actually getting brought to Stanford for genetic testing because I was benching over 400 pounds and squatting over 600 pounds.
No.
Yeah.
Get out of here. At 15?
Yeah. So I benched, my max bench was 430 pounds. And this is when I was weighing almost 180 pounds. So my max bench was 430 pounds. My max back squat was 635 pounds. And this was all when I was basically a sophomore, junior in high school.
Well, you've always been strong as hell, but I didn't realize it was that strong. But you told me one time in particular, your dad would take you and he would drive and you'd have to run him down.
Yeah, like literally chase the car, yeah.
And this is something you wanted to do? This was part of...
Actually, too, it's kind of funny because my uncle would actually, my uncle Frankie actually did it a couple of times where he would take me out and literally, he would tell me he's teaching me how to drive, but it wasn't teaching me how to drive. I'd get in the car and drive a short distance, and then he'd be like, all right, get out, time to chase. And so I'd get out, and he would drive, and I'd literally have to chase down the car.
And then what if he didn't get it?
There wasn't no getting it. You just kept running.
And so at an early age, you obviously had these mentors, your father, your uncle. At an early age, you learned hard work. As time went on, right, you started playing football, right? Yep. And how did that kind of, what did your football career end up like? And, how did you leave and how did it make you feel?
Well, the football, so as you know, I had a child at a young age. And so when I had a child at a young age, it changed my perspective on football. I talked to a coach and I asked the coach, it was when I was getting ready to go to college, what school should I pick? Where should I go? I want to be a professional. And the coach told me, he's all, look, Neal, you have a little one to look after right now. He's all, you need to look to go somewhere where you're going to be a student first, athlete second. I had the opportunity to go to Texas A&M, University of Hawaii, University of San Diego. I had options, but I chose a small school in McMinnville, Oregon, where the reason why I chose that school is when I went there for a recruiting visit, they preached school. They didn't preach all the other extended services that those big programs can have. I went to other places and that's what their luxury was. But I chose a place where I knew I could be successful as a student first, and that's exactly what I did. And so I went to school, and it was kind of funny because when I was talking to Tracy the other day, my wife, I was saying, I had two different options when I was in school. I can go on a path where I can be the best student athlete I can be, or I can be the best athlete student. And what I mean by athlete student, focus all my studying on being a better football player versus student in the classroom. Instead, I chose to be a better student in the classroom, with football being my second option. And I guess that was my downfall when I try to go pro.
And so, but what you call a downfall when you try and go pro, you went and played in the Arena League, right?
Yeah.
But in looking back on it, was it a downfall trying to turn that, but actually a benefit in all other areas? Like, looking back on it, would you have done anything different?
You know what? I would have done it the same way, because all my buddies who focused on their football careers, some of them made it to the pros, but then I look at the position that they're in right now, and I'm not taking anything away. I just think a lot of times when you come from a underprivileged life and you don't really have the proper mentors in place to teach you what to do or where to go when you get an abundance of money, sometimes you can be misled down the wrong direction and lose all that financial stability. And by me going to school, it taught me how to take control of the financial aspects and learn how to better manage it. So I look at my position now, where I'm at here now, versus some of my old football buddies.
Yeah.
I just feel like I was set up in a better position.
Yeah. And you're gaining tools that are going to last you a lifetime.
Yes.
Education. So how did Arena League kind of end for you, or how did that transition?
So basically, I was just a practice squad. So basically, they would have 4 people on a practice squad, and you'd get paid. Injuries just were the limiting factor for me. Injuries were nonstop. At the time, I went to school to be an athletic trainer, and that just, it kind of got boring and repetitive, meaning that it was the same situations that I was working with every single day. I wanted to work with a vast majority of people. That's why I stepped into the training field. But anyways, when you're in the training department, it's like ankle injury, knee injury, and all that. And when you're doing rehab or helping people, that doesn't really, it's fun and it's good, but it doesn't excite me. I like to be in the dirt training with people. I want to see people sweat. I want to see people achieve goals, but I want to see them achieve goals when they're working hard. I'm not saying they're not working hard when they're doing physical therapy. It's just a lower intensity, and it's more of a calmer format. I like to.
Yeah, you like to get after it.
Yeah.
So speaking of getting after it, so you're transitioning through football, and you've always been a guy, obviously, who's not afraid to put in the hard work. Yep. So how did that get instilled? Because from there you found CrossFit.
Yep.
This sense of hard work, I imagine, obviously went back from when you were 15 or when
honestly,
you were 9.
The hard work really honestly comes from my mom. I mean, the nitty gritty and all that stuff came from my mom. My mom was a go-getter. So what I mean by that is anytime the family needed something, she worked her butt off. She did countless hours to support 5 kids, and I owe everything to her. She's a staple. She's the one. Even though I had other male figures around, she was the one, no matter what, who instilled everything in me.
And so wow. And so, yeah, you're transitioning on. And I know in our days, man, I mean, dude, we had some of the best training environment ever.
Yeah.
And so you've been able to compete at the CrossFit Games a lot of times.
Yeah.
And you just recently won the Masters divisions, 40 to 44.
Yeah.
And how did that compare? Because you and I briefly talked about this, but I'd like to talk about it. How did that compare to your CrossFit Games? So I think your best CrossFit Games finish was 9th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
You competed as an individual how many times?
I competed 6 years as an individual,
And then one as
uh,
a
and
master?
then two as a masters. Yep. So 35 to 39, I took second, and then 40 to 44, I took first.
So looking at that, comparing your individual compared to masters, how are they different? How are they similar?
Um, how are they different? There's no comparison from individual to masters. There's just no comparison. The individual is the ultimate cream of the crop. However, Father Time is kind of humbling, and as you get older, you realize that you only have that window's only open for so long. Where they're similar is that you're on the fighting ground with people with the same common interests who are all fighting towards that title of the world's fittest. Where it's different is the level of competition. Going from the individual elite competition, everyone in those brackets anyone could take it on any given day. When you go into the masters realm, I'm not taking anything away. So please, master athletes, don't get mad when you hear this. There's probably 5 or 6 people who are really competitive, and then you get a bunch of people who are fighting for just rounding out the cards.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. It kind of is like that in the individual division too. However, there's more chances of people making upsets along the way. They're just not the top people dominating throughout.
So as you're getting ready for these events, whether it was individual, and we've trained many years together, or masters, how have you been able to stay physical? Because here you are at 40, early 40s. You started training when you were 9.
Yep.
How have you been able to keep your body in shape this whole time? Because you're like a specimen. You're jacked. You're ready to rock at all times. You're strong as hell. How have you been able to do that? And how has that shifted from when you were 9 to 15 to 20, 30, 40, et cetera?
So there's times between 9 to about 12, I was pretty active. Then I was kind of inactive for a little period of time. And then I started getting active again between 14 and 15 when I was playing football and all that. A lot of that, like I said, it just comes from the will to not want to end up like the rest of my family members. A lot of my family, so perfect example, I was just literally talking about this yesterday. My great-grandparents lived into their early hundreds and late 90s. My grandparents, other hand, 60s. My uncles, 30s, 40s, 50s, all died. And this is all related to cardiovascular disease, diabetes. This is all cancer. This is all related to all the bad things that happen when you don't take care of your body. And so when I saw that, and when I was younger, having to go to the hospital, seeing your family in the hospitals, you realize that you want something better for yourself. And I just wanted to make sure that I didn't ever end up in a position where I was bedridden or I was in a weakened state where I couldn't support myself. And so I chose the health and fitness industry because, like I said, seeing my family and all of them die, I'm still faced with it today.
But why so extreme? You could just go out for a jog. And but why have you decided to go out on this totally different path of CrossFit Games and pushing yourself to the extreme?
Yeah.
What drives you to do that?
What drove me into CrossFit was the fact that it allowed me to still be competitive. It allowed me to be a competitive athlete, and it allowed me to, release all that inner fight. Playing football for so many years, football was a release that allowed me to release maybe, emotions that I got from everyday day-to-day life. It allowed me to release myself out there. And so when I go to compete, it does the same thing. When I have things building up on a day-to-day basis, I work out, it allows me to just get that release. It allows me to give me that hour of power to be able to refocus my energy.
So let's talk about back in the day when you're really competing at the highest level at the CrossFit Games. What kind of things did you tell yourself, did you do to put yourself in the best position to win?
You want to know something? It was a learning experience every single time. I think about the years that we started training together, and I went up to you and asked you to, hey, let's get together and start training. And it's been a process. I guess a lot of it, now that I sit back and I really think about things, I think a lot of things that affected me when I was a kid because I was partially, I think I've told you I was deaf.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was deaf, it put me in situations that made me, I guess, feel a little bit more insecure mentally in certain situations. So why am I bringing that up? Because those situations actually carried over when I started competing in the CrossFit Games. And what I mean by that is if there was something that didn't favor me or didn't seem like I could do good on it, I automatically got into my head. And instead of me performing to my best, it made me perform worse. Because I always wondered, would train together. Would train with Rich, would train with everyone. And when we were training, I always did well.
Yep.
But then on the competition floor, I didn't do well. And a lot of that was I got into my own head. And what I did, and by getting into my own head, it had the negative effects of me being the superstar actually looking like a scrub in a sense.
So how did you overcome that?
You know,
That's really interesting.
So,
you tag that to potentially your early childhood and being, having a challenging with hearing, right?
Well, because of the simple fact that challenging with hearing, I had insecurities about, if I have to do this and I can't understand it, I'm going to fail. Same thing ties into, into a workout. Hey, I have a weakness in this. Those similarities, to me, felt like it struck a chord because I learned how to overcome that this past year. That's when I actually thought about developing the Maddox Method. This is how the Maddox Method came about. How it came about is I sat back and I looked and I was like, okay, what were all my downfalls? Where did I fall and what did I do wrong in those time periods? What can I do better and recorrect it? And I looked at each year in which I competed. I broke down from event to event, and I broke down from my training and everything. And I looked at what it was. And when I went back and looked, I said, first off, whenever there was I knew on day one, there was always going to be a run and a swim. And I knew right then and there, I was like, oh shit, my games are, my games are over. That's it. It's done. This year I took a different approach. I have an idea. I already have an outline of what's going to happen. Let me dwarf myself in the stuff that I hate. And what I mean by that is the long running, all the stuff that I hate. And let me, just still work on what I need to work on, but dwarf myself in all the stuff that I didn't like. And that's what I did is I rechanged my approach. I attacked all the stuff that I disliked, and I put that first as a priority on my list.
And I imagine when you went into the competition, right, in Masters, some of those insecurities from your childhood, right, that maybe fostered up in some of the competitions, they were alleviated because you knew you put in all this. Oh, yeah. Right?
Yeah, but here's actually a great experience about the whole weekend. So when the weekend started and stuff, you know how we get down. I mean, I get down the same way as we get down when we used to train back in the day. And so when the competition started, I took my book, wrote down something that I'd never done in the years past. I wrote down every single workout. I've always talked about it, but I never really put it into action. You can talk about putting something into action, but it never really goes into action until you really apply it. And so I wrote it all down. I literally visualized every single workout. I literally would sit there and really feel myself going through these workouts, something that I'd never really done before.
This is leading up to the games? This is at the games?
This is leading up to the games. And
because you knew the events.
Yes. Once I found out the events prior to, I started visualizing. Prior to the games, I was visualizing myself on the podium. That's all I did. What I did is I visualized how I'll look and how I would act when I would get on the podium. So how did I do that? I went to Reebok. I custom made me a pair of gold shoes. Okay. The first pair of gold shoes, I literally laid out what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. And so I wrote all this stuff down and visualized it prior to the games. And then once I got the workouts, I started writing down the workouts and started visualizing myself going through these workouts. And then with me visualizing myself going through these workouts, I put where I was going to place on each of those workouts. Literally, first, second, third. I wrote places that I was going to take before I even did the competition.
So how close did you end up coming to your expectation?
Man, I literally, everything that I said I was going to win, I won. The one that was the biggest surprise to me that I just said top three was the handstand walk over the ramp with the wall ball with the handstand. And I actually won that. And I was just surprised, But anyways, everything I did the way I was supposed to do, but this is going back to my old self now. But then there was a workout that came up that on the final day It was a med ball with GHDs, med ball cleans with GHDs, with weighted GHDs. However, I broke my back many years ago, and I was almost paralyzed from the waist down. So a lot of people don't realize that. Prior to that workout, I already won. I already had prior to that last day, I already had the games won. So I sat there, and one of my
because the point. So for those of you who don't understand that, it's because of the way the point system is structured.
Yep.
It gets to a certain point where there's a minimum work requirement on some workouts, but because of the way the points were structured, he had already locked up that win.
Yes. Okay. So I locked up the win, and we're in the back warming up, and I kind of threw out my back warming up before we did the med ball cleans, and my partner Nick came up to me, and he was my coach at the time, but my training partner. He came up and he's all, Neal, how do you want to be remembered? He's all, I understand you're hurt, but how do you want to be remembered? So I went into that workout, and prior to, my back was kind of messed up, and I knew I had a weakness there. Automatically, I felt myself going into that old Neal where it was going to shut down and not push and just like clam up and just falter. And then I stopped myself and I said, okay, what can I control? This is actually something I thought about when we always talked, when we always train. What can we control? It's something that has always resonated with me. And the thing that I know I can control is how I can compete, how I can perform, and how I react to this situation. So when I went on that floor, 3, 2, 1 goes, what I did instead of shutting down, it was the worst place that I took all weekend. I think I took 10th or 11th, something like that. Every other place was like top 5, whatever. I sat there and I pushed and gritted out, and my back was bad. When I mean bad, I tried to hold it in, but I couldn't even move afterwards. But I gritted it out, and I made it. Instead of me folding and like just taking last place, I literally tried to push. And I saw Jeb, who was down a couple of rows, who I was training with in Wisconsin. And, that gave me the fire to like, hey, he's right there and he's fighting through some stuff. I need to suck it up and fight through some stuff. And so I didn't revert to my old self, and I picked it up and fought through, even though things weren't 100%.
And you probably finished off the weekend, I imagine, feeling good about that accomplishment.
Yeah, so I fought through it, but then here's where it goes. I go into the last event, and it's already won. There's no, I could go through and cruise, but Nick said it again. He's all, how do you want to be remembered? That was my last game. So I knew that going in, and when he told me, how do you want to be remembered? And I told myself, in my head, I want people to know that I'm here not to just win, but to dominate this field, to show that, hey, I put years and years of blood, sweat, and tears into this, and that I'm not going to lose this moment. I want to seize the moment. And so when I went into that last workout, I mean, my hand literally tore 6 pull-ups into it. My hand was bleeding, all that stuff, but I just put my head down. All those years of training with you, everyone else, I threw it into that last workout, and the end result took first and just walked away.
So you talk about blood, sweat, and tears. And I think this is a really interesting time to bring this up. Sean Ramirez recently got popped for steroids. Now, look, I'm not going to get into the specifics of what he got caught for and things like that, and whether it was a mix-up, because there's a lot of people though recently. Someone on Twitter recently saw a tweet that I put out in 2014, and it said, like, I don't think many people are on steroids. 'Cause at the time, like, I do not believe that anybody was. I mean, I know I haven't, and I know all my friends aren't, but the sport has changed. And so I'm curious your take on, you talk about blood, sweat, tears. You talk about, all these people who got in early before the sport had grown, but now you're a little afraid of where the sport's going and what people are going to be doing. Is that, I mean, do you think we're going to see it more often? I mean, what do you think?
Well, we were just talking earlier, and before the glitz and glamour, when we were out just having bro sessions and stuff, and CrossFit was coming out filming us, people didn't realize how much work and what we're doing day in and day out. People didn't realize before the gym would even open up, would meet up and would train at the old Santa Clara location before people even came in. Then would meet up later on. Like, we literally put in the work that we needed to do to get it done. And so, a lot of times now, I think people don't see that. They just see us doing our bro sessions and stuff like that. And then they're thinking, how can I get what these guys got? And what they don't realize, they didn't see the 10 years track record. They're trying to do it in 1 year, but they don't see the 10 or 15 years that we built up to this moment. It wasn't just a moment that we had overnight. And so, like I was saying earlier, I trip out when I see these guys. I look at how long it took me just to develop my snatch.
Yep.
And I already had the strength to do it, but how long it took me. And then it amazes me when I see athletes getting a 100-pound jump on their snatch in a year. It's like, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's to me, I looked at how long it took me. Yes, I benched over 430 pounds, but people didn't realize how often I was lifting and how much, and it was a years of building up to that point. It just didn't happen overnight. So to me, I'm just shocked at some of the numbers, but yet, like I said, some of that has to contribute to, yes, people are probably taking better care of their body. There's better training programs, there's better regimens, there's better recovery. But then on the flip side of that, I do think that there is a percentage that is dirty in the sport due to the fact that there is so much to gain. When there's popularity and there's money and there's fame, people go the distances to grab that. And we're in the sport so early where it wasn't as built up as it is now that we didn't have an influx of that happening.
So where do you see that going? I mean, I'm in agreement with you. I mean, hell, when I won the CrossFit Games, I think I got like $1,200. I don't know how much steroids cost, but it's probably more than that. So where do you see it going? I mean, I'm in agreement with you because do you think one of the concerns is that with the increased volume of training required to compete? Because now you look at the games. They went from 5 events to 10 events to now upwards of X amount of events. Do you think because people need to train as much and they need to recover better, where do you see that going in the future? I mean, I don't know.
Honestly, I mean, it's out there. It's up in the air. It's just, I know guys are putting in mad amounts of hours, but it's up in the air. I mean, I still look at, last year, I think one of the top 3 guys in the open division got busted, right?
Yeah.
Gerard
or
something like that.
Yeah.
And then this year, the list grew. I mean, it just didn't grow by one. It grew.
Yeah.
And so I think the more, and I'm not tagging, please do not tear me down about for this, but I think the more countries that are involved and people who are way behind the loop are going to try to get the aids that are going to help them push them to get to the level of the athletes who are already there.
Yeah, because we've been doing it a lot longer.
Yes.
And that's just a testament to, like Malcolm Gladwell, right? You're talking about 10,000 hours. I mean, it takes a long time to develop, but there's some tools that can help you speed up that process. And I think people will look for those. And so, as the games move on, you're talking about, we're talking about in performance enhancing drugs, but what I'd like to talk to you about is performance enhancing mindset, performance enhancing things that you do. So, you've been athletic for a long time.
Yep.
And like I was saying earlier, you're still killing the game. So what do you do on a daily basis today that helps you recover, that helps you be the best version of yourself fitness wise? What are some like hacks that you've incorporated?
So you have the AMRAP mentality.
Yep.
And so my mentality has been a little bit more extreme. I mean, if you ever notice, it's always been extreme. I always taken everything.
By the way, Neal owns Extreme Athletics. So,
extreme. That's where the name came back. But everything I've always taken to the extreme. So the biggest thing, how I've applied it, and one thing that I'm focusing on when I go to Maddox Method camps and stuff like that is teaching people how to truly indulge yourself into becoming a better person internally first, then externally will just follow. And what I mean by that is, just like I said, writing down your goals, visualizing your goals on a day-to-day basis. For instance, I have, this isn't nothing new. I have vision boards. I have them up everywhere. And with these boards, I write down what I want to do and what I want to accomplish. I actually have my book right now. I have all my tasks that I want to accomplish today for day-to-day pages, but then I have my tasks that I want to accomplish for the year. And at some part of the day, I try to take time now where I didn't before. I try to sit there and visualize the feeling or where I'm going to be or how it's going to feel or whatever I'm going to do for that day. And then I try to put that visualization for the year.
Okay.
And did that make sense what you're saying?
For sure. I mean, so on that note, what do you have going on? So in addition to the visualization that you're writing down,
Yep.
physically though, what type of things are you incorporating into your day that help you stay in such great shape?
Well, I mean, that's just all the day-to-day stuff that we do. What am I? How I apply that? So after I apply the visual aspect and I have all that stuff, then I have my to-dos. And what are my to-dos? To do is to focus on eating 4 quality meals a day. I have my to-dos for the day. So 4 quality meals. Of course, I have my 1 bad cheat meal, but it's better than it's better than not having a list. You see, I just work better when I have something to follow. And so when I have this to-do list and I know I have 4 quality meals that I need to do, I have to schedule in my workouts. If I don't schedule in my workouts, I don't get to work out. And I know you probably have the same way. So this is just some of the stuff that I apply to my day-to-day stuff. I write down my cues of what I need to eat. I write down my cues of what I want to get done with my workouts. I write down my cues of what I want to do and what I want to accomplish for my business.
Every day.
Every day.
And so for you, you just got married. Congratulations.
I write down that too.
Because
Be a better husband.
Yeah.
Every day.
Every day.
I really do.
Yeah. Well, I full agreement. And so you have your business, right? You have Maddox Method, which is, you have your CrossFit Extreme Athletics, right?
Yep.
So you have your gym. And so on a daily basis, you basically write down on a micro level what you're looking to do. And then you also do it on a macro level because you're talking about like your year.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the big focus for Neal Maddox in the next 6 to 12 months? What is Neal trying to do?
The biggest focus that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to extend myself. Since we have the internet, since we have this whole global connection, whereas we didn't have that 40 years ago in the fitness industry, but now we do. I can be a trainer in Italy. I could be a trainer in Australia. I could be a trainer in New Zealand from my hub. And what I want to do is, for years, people always reached out to me. Hey, Neal, do you have a training program? Hey, Neal, do you have this? Hey, Neal, can you offer me this? Hey, Neal, this past year, I actually decided that, hey, I want to give those insights to people outside of this tight-knit community in extreme athletics. I want to be able to extend myself to other regions and stuff like that because people have an interest in what I'm doing and want to learn what I'm doing. And I'm not saying I'm God's greatest gift. I just want to be able to help people who maybe fell through
they're trying to navigate.
Yeah, navigated through the same path I did, or just trying to navigate through life. I just want to know. I only have a short amount of time on this. We all have a short amount of time on this earth. 100 years you think is a long time, but really it isn't if you're trying to make an impact. And so all I'm trying to do is see what I can do to help people and help people achieve their goals. And so by doing so, I'm just trying to extend myself through my program to offer it worldwide.
I love that. So trying to be a good husband, trying to grow your business. I love it. Now you came, you were partially deaf as a kid. You've broken your back. You've had to overcome a lot of adversity and a lot of obstacles. What's one thing, like at the CrossFit Games in particular, what's one event where you kind of stood up and you're like, you know what, man, I'm proud of all my achievements up to this point. Was it this last year's games, or was it another games before that? Was it an event? What stands out to you as like the shining moment for you?
You know what? I go back to that day in the tennis stadium many years ago, and it's clear as day. It was a clean ladder that we got to do. I look at that moment and that time in my life. My mom was dealing with so many health issues, and by the grace of God and stuff, she's still here. And she was only given 2 years at that time, and she's fought through. And I'll go over that part, how she's overcame that. But anyways, I called her up, and I was just so destroyed. I was like, man, Mom, I train and I do this, I do that, and it's like all of a sudden it's not transferring over on the field. What the hell's going on? My mom sat back there and she's all, son, I prayed for you, and she's all, I have a good feeling about this next event. She's all, I can't explain it, but I know something good is going to come out of this next event. And she just kept telling me that. And I was very upset because, I was like almost coming to tears because, she's sick, she's giving me this strength when I should be giving her the strength.
Right.
And she, that's a mom for you. They come, they help you no matter what.
Right.
And, I just sat there and I'm all, how selfish am I right now calling her with this petty little thing? And she's literally fighting to just take another breath and stuff. And so when she told me everything, I hung up the phone. And when I went out there, I'll never forget that last, I think I lifted that 365.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah, it was like a scream, but I literally, that scream was like just all the frustration from the weekend and just everything that was pent up from, just trying to fight and overcome. But that's just one of those instances that I told you about having a vision. I actually was in the back in that tennis room and I visualized myself, and that's having that visualization that I had at that time. I actually visualized myself winning. And there's actually a few times that I've had that over my sports career, but I didn't really understand it until this past year. It's kind of crazy. I could tell you all the moments that I had success, I visualized it prior to, and I can't explain it. I couldn't explain it before, but I see it now because I can go over those times. And that's why I say it's so important when you're striving for a goal to really, I literally write it down. I read it each and every day, and I try to visualize myself being in that seat. That's just, for me, that's how I've witnessed success.
I've had the same experience in the burn and run. I visualized myself going into the arena, and the same thing happened. So your mom's doing better now.
Oh yeah. Well, so my mom is staying with my sister. My sister had twins, and when she had twins, her son Haven, when I mean he's extremely allergic, it's like the glass boy. You know what I'm saying? You can't touch an egg, he can't eat gluten, he can't, there's so many no's that is in his life, and literally she has to carry an EpiPen. If he barely touches an egg, he can die. It's that bad. And so my mom went over there and her diet changed completely. And so I go back to what Hippocrates said many years ago. He said, let medicine be your food and food be your medicine. And when I sat there, and my mom isn't eating gluten, she ain't eating any processed foods, she isn't eating the junk that she used to eat, and she's eating actually healthy home-cooked meals each and every day. No fast food, no sugars, all that stuff. And then I look at how her life has increased, her life expectancy has increased. She hasn't got rid of the emphysema or the epilepsy or the CPOD, but yet she's actually where she used to be on oxygen 24/7. She actually can take off the oxygen mask and be without it. And it's like things that never used to happen started happening when she reverted back to changing up what she ate and what's going into her body. So that's where I say the power of food is tremendous. And so I look at her now, and we're not out of the clear. There's still things that we're fighting, but yet to see her when I had her in the ICU and dealing with all that stuff, to see her where she is now, and then being the strong figure that she is for the grandchildren and all that stuff, that's where I get my fight. That's where I get my internal drive. That's where I get my get up and go each and every day, because I see what she's overcome. And by her overcoming that, I believe we can overcome anything we put our mind to.
Well, Neal, I love it, man. You've always been a hard ass worker, and nothing's ever changed, man. And it just seems like you're in a really good place. Just getting married. Your mom's doing pretty well. Kids are doing good.
Yep. Your daughter's graduating from college this year.
Woo!
So. Amen.
And you got your business is doing well as well. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming by. I really appreciate you chatting with us. Where can people find you if they want to know more about Neal Maddox, the Maddox Method?
MaddoxMethod.com. I'm going to be traveling around, doing my thing, teaching my training camps and all that stuff. And when we're teaching these training camps and all that, basically it's not just for it's for anyone. And the whole purpose of this is passing out my 20 years of experience. But not only that, if you're looking to excel, or if you're looking for the tips and tricks and all that, basically giving all my insight and all my tips and tricks to all the things that I've learned over the years, and then also my CrossFit experience.
Awesome. So you can check out Maddox Method anywhere else?
Maddox Method, CrossFitExtremeAthletics.com. I mean,
and you're on Instagram?
Neal Maddox at Instagram, everything. Everywhere. I mean, it's Neal Maddox, Maddox Method. It's all tied in there and stuff like that. But you guys will be able to find me.
All right, guys. Well, hey, as always, keep doing your thing. Have a great day, and thank you again, Neal.
Hey, thank you for having me, Jason.